It's Tabby from Modern Life Pod. For this episode, I invited Jason back to discuss Charade. It's an old Hollywood movie, mystery, fun whodunit starring Cary Grant and Audrey Hepburn. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at Modern Life Pod. And you can also email us at modernlifepod@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you, and let's get on with the show.
What's your name?
Peter Joshua.
Oh, mine's Regina Lampert.
Is there Mr. Lampert?
Yes.
Good for you.
No, it isn't. I'm getting a divorce.
Please, not on my account.
Oh, no, I see. I don't really love him.
Well, at least you're honest.
Is there a Mrs. Joshua?
Yes, but we're divorced.
Oh, that wasn't a proposal. I'm just curious.
Is your husband with you?
Oh, no, Charles is never with me. What do people call you? Pete?
Mr. Joshua. I've enjoyed talking with you.
Oh, now you're angry.
No, I'm not angry. I just have a lot of packing to do. I'm going back to Paris, too.
Well, wasn't it Shakespeare who said when strangers do meet in far-off lands, they should ere long see each other again?
Shakespeare never said that.
How do you know?
It's terrible. You just made it up.
But welcome back, Jason. You might remember Jason from our documentary episode with our Werner Herzog film. And today we're talking about Charade, a movie from 1963. But before we get into that, Jason, what's on your mind? What you been doing lately? What's your modern thought?
Yeah, so the modern thought, I have been living south of the border for a while, so I don't really have a whole lot of knowledge of what is going on in the culture right now.
That's probably a good thing.
Here in the U.S., yeah, I'm not mad about it. So I figured I'd give you an update about like what's going around in Mexico right now. And it's this great video called Day of the Banana, where a woman feeds her rabbit a banana that is losing its mind over it, and then giving voice to the rabbits. And the video is also known as Chichinol, which is like the kind of the lolcat speak version of how a rabbit would say "si, senor."
I'm gonna have to Google that.
It's a very confusing video. I get the idea that Chichinol is like a funny way a rabbit would say "si, senor," but oh man, it's pretty much it. There's not a whole lot of other content going on there. I was trying to think of like other funny stuff, and I mean, I'm in my third week now of thinking about Drake's horny watch that he wore to the Toronto Raptors.
What is this?
Did you not know about the horny watch?
No.
Oh, this was my hope. I was like, maybe she would know about it. I'm sure
No.
the country. I can't imagine anyone gets tired of thinking about this. Yeah, so during the playoffs between Toronto Raptors and the Golden State Warriors, Drake kept on like posting on his Instagram and showing up to the game wearing this watch that just like it reads 3 lines of text that you can rotate and change to whatever you want. And so like the most tame one that he posted to Instagram, the most tame photo of it, showed "I want to caress you tonight" on a watch, normal. But it gets way hornier than that. So there's like 3 lines of rotating text, and the top bar can be changed to phrases like "I want to," "I need to," "I long to," "I lust to," "I'd love to," and "let me." And then the middle bar is like explore, taste, arouse, devour, caress. And then the bottom bar gets pretty lewd. It's like "you tonight," "your lips," "your body," "your nipples," "your pussy," "you madly," which means that you can get the winning combination of "let me devour your pussy," which you get to look at every time you check the time.
Wait, so is this a digital watch?
No, it's analog.
I'm sorry, I'm just picturing this like 90-year-old Swiss watchmaker just like going about his life like in a shop, and Drake walks in and it's like, I need this thing done. What?
Yeah, I mean, it only gets more absurd than that because it costs $750,000 to make an analog watch that reads a couple of horny phrases on it. What else? There's only 30.
Why wasn't Why wasn't he watching the game? Why is he? What?
Look, he's a talented man. He can be horny at his watch and watch the game. Oh yeah, he showed up at the game with the combination of "I'd love to kiss your pussy." It's very just cultural arbiter, man of our time, certainly.
And I also love the fact that nobody looks at another person's watch. Like, he had to post something on Instagram for people to even like, listen, I spent so much money on this. Everybody's gonna like witness this moment.
Yeah, exactly. It's not something that if you were to look over, it's not a digital face. It's analog and it's tiny text. It's not like anyone who would even look at your watch would notice that.
Right.
Just like going around hoping someone asks you what time it is. Yeah, I don't know the country. Richard Mill. I'm not country. Sorry, the brand, which is Richard Mill. Yeah, I guess they made 30 of these, and I think I'm going to try to buy up the other 29.
Oh man, you always have these like crazy things. Where do you find this stuff?
I spend a lot of time reading papers. I have to like find something halfway interesting to stay sane.
So mine's gonna be pretty frivolous, because like I'm also really sad about things going on in the US.
Yeah.
So, have you seen Toy Story yet?
No. Well, I mean the original certainly, but not the new one.
It's just so phenomenal, and I really just wanted to go see it because I had known now for a few years that, I mean, these movies take so long to make, that Rashida Jones was part of the writing team, and I was like, oh, that's really exciting. Like, I want to support stuff that she does. The animation is on such an insane level. Every joke lands. There's not a single wasted moment. Every scene has a purpose. Like, it's just, yeah, it was just like breathtaking watching this movie. I was like, how are these all so good? Like, it was pretty phenomenal. And that's it. That's my modern thought. Just this movie.
So, number one, I kind of forgot that Toy Story 4 was even coming out. I haven't seen any of the ones past Toy Story, the original.
You don't need to,
I'm
really.
not proud of that. I'm just... That would be my only hesitation going to Toy Story 4, like if I just don't get anything.
No, you'd be fine.
All right. I have a comment about Toy Story 4 beyond that, though, and how it is affecting the culture. So I have a friend who has started dating again, and I guess she was on Bumble, and like in one day, 4 dudes invited her to go see Toy Story 4.
She should have gone to all 4 of them.
Yeah,
it's so good.
As per your recommendation, she's missed out. But isn't that like a bad date, right? Like your first date is going to a movie theater, which number one isn't a good deal, and then number two is one that like Toy Story is one of the few bits of broad culture that dudes will readily admit to crying at. So like your first date is going to a movie theater and sobbing over a Disney film. Not that I'm like, saying you need to be a tough person or whatever. I just think it's a bizarre thing. Like all these dudes are like, I know I'm going to cry at this movie, but gotta get it in.
This one wasn't really, I don't know that anybody cried.
Oh yeah?
It was all just laughs. And the interesting thing is, no matter what movie you go to these days, people like have just exited the hospital giving birth to a child, and then they're like, where should I go? The movie theater, of course. Like, there's like a toddler in here. Like, I get that it's a kids movie, but like your child doesn't even comprehend like the world. It's just so frustrating. But yeah, let's just dive into the main topic. Did you love this movie?
That is the important question. I really liked it. I was surprised. No, it was legitimately funny and a good film. It kept me guessing till the end. No, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, you're gonna have to keep me on my toes, like, because I love this movie so much. I watch it almost every year. And you're going to have to be the person who's like, no, Audrey Hepburn's an idiot. And she's like, man hungry.
Well, yeah, she definitely is in this, her character is. And I've got comments on that. But no, I mean, otherwise, it was really good.
No, let's get started with that if you have something to say about it. We can start there.
Yeah. I mean, like, right from the beginning. I mean, not the very beginning, because like the first couple of scenes are her husband being thrown from a train. Isn't that how he dies?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Audrey Hepburn. What is her name? Regina Lampert, or is that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Regina Lampert. Her husband getting thrown from a train, but then it like switches over to, I don't know, the French Alps. I know nothing about Europe. Also, I've never been, so you're gonna have to correct me on this.
Yeah, no, I've never been to a fancy ski resort in the Alps either.
Okay. So what is it? I mean, like they open up pretty well. A lot of good jokes right off the bat from Audrey.
Oh my god, it's so funny. Like, I could write down every line of this dialogue. Like, I have it all memorized anyways.
Yeah.
But she's like, I already know a lot of people, unless one of them dies. I couldn't possibly think of meeting somebody new. And he goes, well, let me know if anybody drops off the list.
Yeah.
Like, this is brilliant. It's so good.
There's like just a lot of weird little jokes there too that, like, I don't know. This is a big film starring two popular, and I mean, Cary Grant, Audrey Hepburn, and so I kind of expected this because it's going to be going for the broadest audience, that the jokes wouldn't be particularly weird or interesting. And no, they're like all kind of off the wall, weird little wry comments that I thought was great. Like Cary Grant's first line when, God, what is the child's name? Is it Jean-Louis?
I think so, yeah.
Awful child. If I hated anything about this film, it's I hate that child with so much passion.
Why? Why?
Well, what is it? He opens the film by spraying Audrey Hepburn in the face with water. When she's at a ski resort, it's cold as heck out. His accent is terrible. He sounds like what's the kid in Willy Wonka? I don't know, his accent and his just like man.
Really, I thought this kid was a French kid.
Yeah,
but maybe you just don't like French people. Is that what you're saying?
I don't like French children. Apparently, every time there was a child in this film, I just immediately despised them. I can't describe why. Like just his awful English accents, and the high pitch of it. I can't. I don't know what it is. I got to track down this kid. I'm sure he's like a 60-year-old man now, and figure out if his voice changed. Anyway, yeah. I mean, so Cary Grant brings this awful child to Audrey Hepburn and her friend, who she's at this French ski resort, and makes some comment about. Oh, she asks him if Cary Grant found the child like robbing a bank or something, and he was like, "No, I caught him throwing snowballs at
a Rothschild, right?"
What is that joke? Like, it's just such a weird like point of reference. I looked up like Baron Rothschild, and I don't even have like more information about it.
They're like, I thought they were really like huge family at the time.
Yeah,
like just like a really.
That's like all I could get out of it too. But there's just like weird little comments about that, and
well, it would have been funny at the time, I guess. I don't know.
Well, no, but I mean, like the point here is like it's two people bonding over how much they despise this child, and I despised him too, so it did a good job of connecting me immediately to these characters.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, but something I actually found out about that dynamic between Cary Grant and Audrey Hepburn is that they pushed for her to be kind of like the instigator, like she was pursuing him.
Okay.
Because he was really uncomfortable with the age difference, even though like they're 25 years apart, and this is one of the like smallest age differences he has with another female person in a movie. Because he's 59 and she's 33.
Yeah.
And that's also why he had them add all those lines about like, she's like, oh, you're treating me as a child. And, that's why they changed it for her to be pursuing him. So it wouldn't be as creepy, which I kind of appreciate them even thinking about that at the time. You don't even see that happening nowadays.
Yeah.
So. But it turns her into this person who no matter what, always believes what he's saying. Like she's just really into him, no matter what happens.
Yeah, I mean they do bring up the age difference pretty frequently, which not pretty frequently, but like in some key scenes, and that's definitely good. But even then, she's a 33-year-old or 33 or 34. I'm 33 right now, and the idea like so even that doesn't really work with me. We're just like, man, I I just can't imagine having that sort of impulse like you're a 19 or 20-year-old again at
Hmm.
3 for a guy who's 59. But either way, that's really funny that they thought to change the dynamic between them a bit, and like no one else really had thought of that beforehand. They were just like, well, yeah, of course she's going to be into this 59-year-old guy.
Right. I mean, what's the movie? Who's in Vertigo? Is that Jimmy Stewart? I can't remember right now, but the girl is like just turned 20 or something, and he's like a middle-aged man. I just remember that movie specifically making me like kind of uncomfortable watching it, but it's also a Hitchcock movie, so like,
Yeah, my more modern touch point for all of these is Bill Murray and Scarlett Johansson, and
oh yeah.
I watched this. I reviewed this again with a friend last night, and she was playing the game of like, would I? I mean, he is handsome. Would I hook up with Cary Grant with that kind of age difference? And she was undecided. So
And that's understandable. So I found out that the person who directed it, Stanley Donen, also did Singing in the Rain, which is one of my favorite movies. And I think this movie, I don't know, this movie is gorgeous, just like Singing in the Rain. You know, a lot of the sets are really memorable. My brother was watching it kind of halfway with me, and he goes, oh, I know I've seen this movie, but I don't remember anything about this, but that, set where they're in the hotel and the elevator, that Iron Gate elevator, he's like, oh, that's unforgettable. Like, I remember that specifically.
Yeah. I love I don't have the brain for that, but just the idea of like walking by an elevator and be like, yeah, I'll do a whole movie here. Like just that kind of strong aesthetic response to a space like that. But it works. I mean, that elevator is incredible. The hotel they're in is beautiful. The other really striking place for me in this was the apartment that Audrey had with her ex-husband, and like she comes back and it's been completely sacked, and she's just like opening up the different cabinets. I mean, that apartment, just by my estimation, must be like 80% cabinet space. But I mean, like, it's just really beautiful spaces. But I'm a humble Kansas dirt farmer, so
And a lot of this was actually shot, in Paris and on location. The scene where they're walking down by the river and she says, oh, do you remember them filming American in Paris here? And the funny thing about that is that American in Paris was actually filmed on a soundstage, and it wasn't filmed. It was just replicating the Seine. And then also I tried to look up stuff about that hotel that this is being filmed in. Mm-hmm. I just want to give credit to Stanley Foss. He's a YouTuber who really looked into this, and he was like, well, there's certain shots that like go through the floor, so it looks like this was filmed on a soundstage, but there's a hotel in Paris that he tried to talk to the concierge, and they were taking credit for, oh yeah, this was filmed here, and the interiors didn't look anything like Charade. So there is a hotel that was filmed. The outside was filmed, where they like keep running out of the hotel or getting into the taxi. And then he actually reached out to the man who played the little kid in the movie, and the kid said, oh yeah, I remember that being a set. And so that is actually like a stage at Universal. So
okay. Well, they certainly did a good job with it.
I also love that no matter what happens at this hotel, like, business goes on as usual. Like, it's not like blocked off for a crime scene or like, nope. Like,
some guy's throwing a Coke can through a door, and everyone's just like,
Like, the guy's still sleeping downstairs on the chair. Like, everything's fine. It's not like dead bodies in this building.
Yeah. God, I forgot. 3 people died in that hotel, pretty much.
Right.
Pretty gruesome deaths too. One guy drowned in a bathtub forcibly. The other one, God, was it Tex who dies?
Oh man, yeah.
By the bag. That was that was graphic.
I forget how violent this movie is.
Just how it was back in the day, I guess. Yeah, I mean,
But
just
that,
go ahead.
sorry, no, I was just gonna say that scene in the bathtub, like the timeline doesn't even make sense because they're all looking through different rooms. So how could how could the evil guy have had a chance to like to overtake somebody, then drown them, then fill the bathtub up with water? Like it doesn't really make sense if you think about it.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. You found the one flaw in how they line this up, but yeah. I'm trying to think of what else I have in terms of like notes. So this is probably the youngest I've ever seen Walter Matthau. And
yeah.
I refuse to do any further research, and so I assume he was born at 40. He's yeah, I mean, like Walter Matthau is just a great person who I really only knew from Dirty Old Men, which
Yeah.
is one of those strange things that like can lodge into your brain as a child, and you have no real reason for why you liked it so much. Like what about Dirty Old Men appealed to, I don't know, how old must I have been, like 11, 12-year old person watching this film, but like unforgettable role, unforgettable characters. And so anytime I see him any younger, it's really striking. But fortunately, he doesn't even look that young in this film. So
That's true. And also something I love about his acting is he just knows what to do with his body during a scene. Moments of him eating a sandwich or he's smoking a cigarette or I don't even know. Like it's always interesting to watch him.
yeah, the sandwich thing ruled. I can't explain what was so funny about him producing that basket of sandwiches when Audrey Hepburn shows up to his office for the first time, or not his office rather.
Mm-hmm.
Where he offers her the basket of like liverwurst chicken, and liverwurst sandwiches or something like that.
Why would you go for chicken?
I don't know. I don't even know that I've had liverwurst, so that probably would have been my go-to.
Oh, it's just like a paste.
Yeah.
It's delicious. Have you seen the original, what is it called? The Magnificent Seven?
Yeah.
The guy who plays Tex. That's what I knew him from, as being one of the cowboys.
Oh. Tex, also a great character. Oh, real quick, yes, Walter Matthau, great character, does great stuff with his body all the time. There is one scene where he's being chased by, the guy with the hook hands. I'm forgetting what his character's name is in the movie. And they're up on the roof and they're fighting or whatever. And Walter Matthau at one point says something like, "Did you really expect me to just hand it over to you?" And he just does this like really broad motion with his hand to indicate the action of handing over, which I can't really explain why, but that was such like a funny and like wooden sort of thing. We're like, they probably should have done like another take on that. And I'm sure like it'd be one of those things where if I saw myself doing it on film, I'd be like, ugh, why didn't the director stop me?
Wait, what scene was this? I'm not.
The hook guy, I think it was. Did Walter Matthau pursue him off of the? Well, anyway, hook hand guy and Walter Matthau are up on the roof of the hotel.
No, that was Cary Grant.
Oh shoot! I'm sorry. So it was Cary Grant. Then Walter Matthau is a perfect actor and had to get involved in the film. Yeah, never mind. That was Cary Grant. Walter Matthau's great. Kills every scene. Delivers lines incredibly, just does a great frumpy, bedraggled kind of exhausted thing. Good job.
Also, how he like sticks the gun into the hook, like threatening Cary Grant. It's just funny to me every time. Like, how would he pull the trigger? Like this is not threatening.
Yeah, well, if you jerk your arm forward real quick, then maybe the momentum would depend. I don't know. That was like a great thing. We're just like. Like, well, we got the hook, put the gun in it. Like, just we got two critical things in the scene. Let's just combine them, put them together for full impact. Shoots another man with his hook.
Something else I really want to kind of draw attention to is the music by Henry Mancini. That theme song was nominated for an Oscar. It's just one of those classic songs. Like It's fantastic. And then also the opening cartoony credit sequence. That was done by the same guy who did all the James Bond intros back in the day. And once I found that out, I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, the opening credits were beautiful. A lot of really beautiful patterns and transitions. Whenever I think of elaborate opening credits, I'll usually think of like a Marvel film or something like that. Like, this was the Marvel special effects for the opening credits back in the day. Really good. Music in general was incredible through this film.
And this movie, I mean, you already pointed this out, but it just starts off so strong out the gate. Like, somebody dies, and then you see Audrey Hepburn being like, oh, I'm getting a divorce. And you're like, what? Like, we haven't even met the husband. Or I guess we did, but I just love it.
Yeah, opening dialogue with her is great. She's just kind of like, I can't really explain it. I'm just very disappointed and kind of bored with this. Yeah, great. I'm going to butcher this, but I mean, every outfit Audrey Hepburn wears, which apparently is provided by Givenchy. I don't know how to actually pronounce any French word at all. But yeah, I mean, even start strong with the outfit game right off the bat.
And she was one of those people that everybody wanted to design for, and it wasn't just like somebody in costume being like, well, what do we have? What do we have in storage? Like, everything was made specifically for her. Like,
yeah,
because she's such a star. It really shows. The only thing I always look at is her hairpiece is a slightly different brown than the rest of her hair, and like I can't help looking at it every time. But
meanwhile, Cary Grant looks like they just dressed him off of whatever mannequins were at the local JCPenney. Like, just
what? No, he looks great. Stop.
The suits are good. I'll say the suits are good, but like anytime he's wearing an overcoat, I don't know, they're just sloppy looking. I can't really explain it. And then like all the other dudes have, they've got appropriate suits for their personality. Tex's suit is very good. Not only is
he's wearing a bolo tie, isn't he? Or am I misremembering that?
I'm thinking of the funeral scene specifically. He's definitely wearing just like an ultra thin tie for that one. But maybe he's wearing a bolo in other points. But I liked how, I mean, number one, like everyone's suit, the fabric on it looks like it's an inch thick. Like the fabrics are so much thicker on everyone's pieces than they are on any suit that I've ever bought. So
yeah, that's true.
Just one of those, like, back in the day when textile was not cheap, but certainly cheaper to get within the average person's budget. Man, I mean, everyone has been sweating like crazy. But like Tex's suit, kind of cheap looking, very tight on him, which actually works really well with his character since he's supposed to be kind of like a slim Texas kind of figure the entire time. But like it really looks like it's restricting him in some scenes. But God, what is it? Do you know who that actor is who played Tex?
I'll have to look it up.
My friend pointed out some other film that he was in, but regardless, great actor. He's probably my other favorite character in all of this. Way more personality than, just hook hand guy who's kind of mad all the time.
Well, but also let's talk about that funeral scene really quick, where
funeral's the best.
You get introduced to all these different characters, and they're all trying to see if this guy is really dead. But they're all doing, you get right away what their personalities are and how they go about that. I love that.
Yeah, funeral scene. I think that's the one that really sold me on this being like a good film and not just having, like some flashes. But yeah, the funeral scene starts out great with the French inspector sitting in the back, and it's Audrey Hepburn and her friend being the only. So those are the three people who are actually in attendance at this funeral. And the French inspector in the back, and this is probably the funniest moment for me, like Audrey and her friend are talking about, like, oh, the French inspector's here. Well, at least he's well behaved. And they go to a close-up shot of him, and he's clipping his fingernails.
It's amazing.
During the wake of this guy, it was fantastic. And then all the characters coming in, perfect.
And sorry, I just looked it up. The actor's name is James Coburn.
James Coburn, fantastic actor. I got to find out what else he was in.
And also at the end of that scene where she gets that note, And the person just keeps backing off, going like, pardon, pardon.
Yeah, you never see him again, one-off character, but like the funniest thing, he just, slowly drifts away saying pardon, quieter and quieter. Yeah, so what is it? Sneezy, which is my name for him because that's the only real character trait he has. He's kind of like mean otherwise, but I don't really know what else he had that was that interesting. Yeah, it goes over and like sneezes on the corpse's face to test if he's actually dead. I think Tex is the one who comes in and produces the mirror and like puts it underneath the corpse's nose to test in case it's going to fog up and that he's actually breathing. And then Hook Hand guy sticks him with a pin and then throws the pin into the casket with just great introductions to all the characters.
And something I always forget rewatching it too is that they introduce the stamps pretty much right away, because the child that you hate so much goes like, oh, if you moved away, you could, I could get the letters and I could get all the stamps. And it's just such a throwaway line that you don't think about.
Yeah, totally. I went back and watched this one more time after I finished the first time through, and just picked up on those little moments. We're just like, oh yeah, here it is. Here was them broadcasting that the stamps are a big deal.
Okay, so not only was my brother kind of watching this, but his girlfriend Stacy was watching it, and she is terrifying. Like within like freaking like 25 minutes into the movie, she's like, oh no, he's not the dead person's brother. Cary Grant's not the bad guy. He's the good guy. He's the government agent. The other guy's evil. I'm like, what? Like, how would you know this? Like, she just broke down the entire movie. Like, and then I'm like, okay, Stacey, where's the money? Where's the money? And she's like, it's in the envelope. I'm like, there's nothing in the envelope. How would it be in the envelope? And she goes, I don't know. It's just in the envelope. And then the stamp scene comes and she's like, oh, it's terrifying. I'm like, how did you know all this?
Yeah, don't try to double cross her. She'll figure you out.
But I'm not one of those people. I mean, I also watched this pretty young, and I was, for every twist, I was surprised, when I first watched it. I had no idea what was happening. And I also did find out that putting a stamp, gluing it onto a piece of paper like an envelope, greatly reduces its value.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that works, but...
But I also went down that rabbit hole last night too, where I was like, well, okay, so you bought a $125,000 stamp or something like that, and then you put it on an envelope. Is it really worth that? Because you get fingerprint smudges on a comic book, and that reduces its value. I feel like the stamp collector is not going to want it already adhesed to the back of a piece of paper already. But again, okay, so we found two flaws with this film.
And everybody always says like, oh, that stamp collector is such a nice guy and he gives the stamps back. And I'm like, you didn't know that they were going to show up again, or that the kid was going to remember this guy? Like, he's shady as fuck.
Yeah, he's covering his ass. He's like, yes, I expected you. This is all part of my plan.
Uh-huh.
He paid off the kid with a bag of stamps beforehand. He clearly thought he was going to get away.
You see like the packed bags in the corner, like, oh, yes.
Well, yes, true. I was just about to pick up the phone and call the French inspector myself.
So did you have any clue as to like what was happening as you were watching it?
So
or you're just along for the ride?
Yeah, I'm also someone who... saying I'm along for the ride is a flattering way to put it. I'm just like dumb to follow plots sometimes. Unless it's like an obvious political allegory, then I'm like, if it's a political allegory, I am in. Like if there's a Marvel film where I'm like, oh, hell yeah, they're talking about, or like Star Trek 2, I think was, I'm sorry, of the new films was like kind of an allegory for the Iraq and Afghanistan wars and like potentially creating resentful like terrorist cells within these groups. And I was all about that film and I could tell you about it. But if it's just like kind of a romp, I'm just like, oh, wow, look at all this stuff. Yeah, I'm really bad at following plots. But this one, I'm an adult now with my large adult brain and I'm a little better at doing it. But, kind of guessing certainly as to who Cary Grant's character actually was. I did not pick him as the inspector at the end like Stacey did. That's incredible. And I certainly would not have guessed that Walter Matthau had like used The Office, during the lunch hour when no one was
Right.
there, which they also, give more than a couple of lines to, but it just did not mean anything to me at the time. No, I kept guessing. I kind of, took everyone at their word for the most part, and then was like, oh, I guess he's not Dyson. Oh, I guess he's not whoever the heck he claimed he was after that.
Mm-hmm.
Very dumb, though. I'm really not good at plots in film.
Something else I really love about Audrey Hepburn's character in this is I never got the feeling that she was a victim. Like all her stuff, the husband auctioned everything off and she deals with it pretty calmly.
Yeah.
Even though, she's this like high society wife, she's like, well, I guess I'm getting my old job back. Like I never felt like she was like a damsel in distress or anything like that.
No, I thought they did. She's a fully realized character. Like the biggest criticism I think you could muster of her in terms of her portrayal as a woman is probably just her like head over heels falling in love with Cary Grant for no particular reason whatsoever. Like, so my friend and I were talking about this last night. So there's the scene where the drip dry suits. I meant to talk about this earlier when I was talking about the costume.
Oh, that's adorable! I love that part.
Yeah, like okay. So Cary Grant mentions having like a drip dry suit, which must have been like a new suit technology or advertising kind of thing at the time. I'm trying to think of like what the modern equivalent would be. It'd be like Adidas Dry Fit or something like that. And
no wrinkle something. I don't know.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was wondering if this is like the era's version of a brand tie-in or something to Drip Dry Company or Drip Dry Technology Group, getting major kickbacks from this or what.
But then he also says that his watch is waterproof. So what? I don't know.
Huh. Was this the decade when man finally beat water? Like no longer ruled by the tyranny of wet things, I guess. I don't know. But they mention it several times, and then he does that. He's finally comfortable enough to goof around with Audrey because he's not frantically searching her both for subterfuge or her space for whatever. He seems pretty convinced that she doesn't have the money, and now he's just kind of funning. And so he gets in that shower, and then with his suit on, and explains it's drip dry, and then says, "Oh yeah, they recommend that you wear the suit in order to maintain its shape, during wash or whatever." Cute scene, witty. He does some good stuff, but Audrey Hepburn, in like 10 minutes before, had already said that she was falling in love with him. That was the scene, like the one scene where Cary Grant was like actively trying to win her affection and just kind of like showing off or whatever. But Audrey like decided, I don't know, 2 aliases before that she was already in love with this guy. I don't know. And then, like the fact that she keeps lying to him and like she has made him promise that he's not going to lie to her because she's tired of being lied to, which alludes to how her ex-husband or, her recently deceased husband would also kind of like lead her on and lie to her about his identity and so forth. And then she immediately falls in love with the next guy who lies to her. Yeah,
that's a good point. Also in that scene, and I don't think this is too nefarious, but it's just something that stood out to me, is he uses her shower, which is a hilarious moment because she is locking the door and not letting him come back to his room. And I'm like, it's just one of those things where I'm like, if the genders were reversed, like this wouldn't be cute, like, it's just something that I always kind of think about.
Yeah. But no, otherwise, great character. She's got her wits about her. She outsmarts him at a number of points, like where she calls that taxi and then tells us off, and then she jumps into the taxi behind it. Or no,
she's like hiding behind the taxi.
Yeah, they did a real good job of not just making her like in distress. She's someone who's like in deep and in love, but not dumb. Certainly, like she's really a fully formed character.
She can outrun Cary Grant in heels.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about the classic orange scene because it's just freaking ridiculous.
Yeah, the dinner show. Yep.
makes me laugh every time. But then also, it's funny, but then also there's a moment of them kind of locking eyes, and you can see these two characters starting to have feelings for each other.
Yeah.
But then the scene afterwards where she's in the phone booth, I never understand why she doesn't just blow out the matches. Because Tex holds the match like right in front of her face, and I'm like, just blow it out. I mean, later on when he does it really fast, like I can understand why she just keeps like brushing them off her dress. But I'm like, maybe just don't stand there with your mouth wide open like a fish. Like I don't know.
Yeah, the match scene was pretty good. But yeah, I totally agree. Matches are very light. They're not great. They're great at starting flames, but they very easily go out. They do it most of the time on their own. Not that big of a deal. Maybe fabrics were more flammable back then, and that was like the risk. I don't know. But yeah, the floor show was great, and features a classic character of early cinema, which is like the kind of busty dowager sort of character that Cary Grant first has to get the orange off of. There's kind of the like just a classic character from like old physical comedy of like the indignant but like dignified dowager, like pearl wearing type who gets slightly physically humiliated by the rapscallion like main character. Classic. Just don't see that so much anymore. You never see these people getting pies in the faces, monkeys, leaping onto them. So it's just good to see the classic.
Oh man, that's what you want to go back to?
We spent decades with this character, and I don't know the last time. I don't see a lot of movies necessarily anymore, but there's just not many wealthy old dowagers to be humiliated.
There's also the next line I have written down that's maybe my favorite line from the whole movie is, it's kind of when they get into this little tiff and he's like, how would you like a spanking or whatever, and she says, what's wrong with you? And then she smiles and she goes, nothing. And I'm like, oh, it's so cute, I love it. Like it's just such a great moment.
Yeah. Really great. Like they bust each other's balls the entire film, and that's really endearing because that is also exactly how like my romantic world operates, and it's cool seeing Audrey being someone who's like can cycle between those two modes of like, yeah, we give each other a hard time, but there's really nothing but like affection, and I am like madly in love with you for being able to roll and riff like this. Very believable.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then Cary Grant later on, I think, kind of echoes that when they're on the boat on whatever river is in France. I couldn't tell you anything. I'm again humble.
It's the Seine.
Humble dirt farmer. Yeah. So they're on the Seine, and Audrey is kind of being mum because I think she knows that he lied to her about his identity again or something like that. But then Cary Grant says something like, you should see your face right now. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Yeah. What was his like finishing line?
I don't. I guess I don't remember. I don't know why I said yes to that.
Well, it was like, you should see your face right now. And she's like, what's wrong with things? Like, it's lovely or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
People, this great line about the person answering being kind of vulnerable and the other person being like incredibly affectionate and loving, and just kind of revealing it in these subtle ways.
Oh, it's so nice.
It's very extremely pleasant, very cute. And
also that scene where he goes, let me know what you want to eat tonight so I can match my suit. Because she had like dropped the ice cream on him like that moment before. Which that scene where he just takes her ice cream and then throws it in the river. And I was like, oh, what? The other thing I wanted to point out that I'm really only pointing out because we still haven't gotten better about this at all, is the trope of disability as code for somebody's evil or something villainous is going on.
Yep.
Because the hook isn't really useful in any way. It's not a prosthetic anyone would have. So he's just, they're trying to make that character scary. And I feel like it would have been funny in that movie if we didn't see this still today going on, especially, like, I think that's why I have a lot of trouble watching horror movies too, because it's always like, oh, the crazy insane asylum, or like the guy with the facial disfigurement. Like, it always bothers me.
Yeah. Easy sort of trope doing the physical disfigurement, being like, oh yeah, of course, guy with like a scar, or literally just, yeah, the guy's got a hook hand, potentially from like a war wound or whatever. So it was even like this weird thing of like, oh, he's like a veteran too, and
Yeah.
and we put a gun in that hand just to really emphasize like the nefariousness of that disfigurement. The attractiveness level, I think, is also an interesting one of those. Like, none of the villains certainly match like the standards of like attractiveness as like the two lead characters. I always am paying attention to that sort of thing, thinking about like conventional ideas of attractiveness and who gets assigned to what role.
I totally agree with you on that. But I think for this movie, they made the effort to have the people's like outside really match the character.
Yeah.
Like, there's a really burly guy, and then there's kind of like the nerdy guy, and it feels more of like, oh, we're building out this character, as opposed to, the Disney level of like, oh, they're evil because they look evil, they're ugly.
Yeah.
But you're totally right. I'm not disagreeing with you.
Oh,
and
no.
That's a good point.
But they do a great job with, you're right about the exteriors of the characters matching him really well. And, I wouldn't want Tex to look anything different than
oh my God. Are you kidding me? Like, I want to be with that guy.
Tex is good.
It's so charming. Yeah. Oh, also something else I was going to point out, that shower scene with Cary Grant. A man died in that bathtub like the night before. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Oh yeah, I guess he did. I was checking my notes, and the other moment that I'm sorry. This was actually the first moment that I like really thought that this was going to be a brilliant film in terms of at least the dialogue. Was when Reggie and Cary Grant's character like first meet, Audrey Hepburn and Cary Grant first meet. They are about to part from the resort or whatever, and Audrey makes some comment about wanting to see him again, and he kind of brushes it off, and then Audrey follows up, and I wrote this down. Well, wasn't it Shakespeare who said when strangers do meet in far off lands, they should ere long see each other again? And Cary Grant's response is, Shakespeare never said that. And Audrey goes, how do you know? And he goes, it's terrible. You just made it up. And I love that level of just like...
Yeah, and she's like, well, it sounds right. Like, yeah. It's really funny.
Yeah, I love both sides of that conversation so much. Someone making up a Shakespeare quote on the spot and just trying to... add an air in there to pass it off as legitimate. I totally do that. And then Cary Grant is responding like, it's terrible.
Also, where she...
Go ahead.
Where she like says, she kind of explains her situation to him, and she's like, well, I'm about to be divorced. And he's like, oh, don't get a divorce on my account.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
Yeah, just... really good writing. I like both these characters so much, except for Cary Grant, who just continues lying about all this stuff. But, I got the government agent. You do what you do for your love of country.
So there's something else that I had written down, going back to Walter Matthau, but I didn't suspect him of anything, because when she's calling him, he's always in the middle of something. Like, he's always in the middle of shaving, or like he's cleaning his tie, and he never looks like, when he's presented to the audience and we see what he's doing, he never looks like he just came back from murdering somebody.
That's
and
true.
I think that's the movie being really, really intelligent with creating this illusion that's not even for the other characters, that's just for the audience watching.
Yeah.
Except for Stacy.
Right, yeah. I wonder if... So, I mean, at one point he's cleaning his tie... But I don't remember. I think that's before he even had the opportunity to kill anyone, probably.
No, that's just when he snuck into the office.
Yeah.
But it looks like it's his office, because he's already like eating sandwiches, and like he spilled some on himself, and like you would never suspect that this guy just snuck in here during lunch to use the office.
Yeah, and he brought in like a photo of his family because he makes reference to his child, which he calls Ham Junior. That one just, I love the idea of calling a child Ham Junior on top of it. Just different times, man. Yeah, and then the other thing that I thought was really funny at one point when she calls Walter Matthau's character, it's like the West Wing, where everyone does the walk and talk sort of thing. They just have to have some kind of action in the scene. Walter Matthau is just literally holding the phone, both the receiver and the actual part that it connects to, and just like squatting up and down, up and down.
Oh yeah,
and the camera's like following him for that.
Oh, that is brilliant. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It's like
he's just getting his exercise in during the day. He's in the office a lot, so he's got to do squats.
But then there's these little things that him accidentally calling agents spies, and she has to correct him. Like, It's played for a joke, but then when you rewatch it, it's like, oh no, he's tricking her. Like,
yes.
He messed up. The only other last thing I'd written down was the chase scene at the end.
Yeah.
Which they did film in a real subway too in Paris. And those old subway cars too, they're like this really old wood. Just so gorgeous. I wonder if they still have them somewhere in a museum, because I know those aren't the ones they use today, but
yeah,
it's just beautiful to look at.
Yeah, the subway was really beautiful. All the nostalgic sort of things, like even the telephone booths. I was just like, oh, they're so cool. Even though it's like a dingy telephone that the public uses in a subway, it's still just really cool seeing telephone booths and stuff like that.
Yeah, the chase scene too of her waiting for the train, and at that point, me watching, I was afraid of Cary Grant, and I'm like, oh my god, is she gonna get on the train in time? And then the whole scene where she's hiding in the theater prompter, and with that scene does go on for a little too long, of Cary Grant like looking at the switches and the person walking overhead. But then when he drops to it, I'm like, damn, that's really violent.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also don't know if that person would just be instantly dead, but because your legs would be broken, and maybe he snapped his spine, right? That could be.
I was guessing
I don't know.
Spine. That would be the thing where I was like, oof, that does suck, man. That's why you got to tuck and roll for that. The chase scene was pretty great in the theater. It was like a weird ending spot, I guess, and I was trying to think of it as metaphor for the rest of the film, and I'm always thinking about the sort of larger ideas with that, and I kind of appreciate just like being careful with your step and literally falling through the floor, the sort of metaphor of like the uncertainty and the precariousness of where you walk and all of that. It was also just a really cool sort of thing, where he's literally just deciding which of these squares I'm gonna allow the trap door to fall through. As a child, that would appeal to me quite a lot because trap doors are the coolest.
Yeah, I don't know if the theater really has any. I mean, it probably does have some kind of symbolism, but maybe that's just also the set they had.
Yeah.
But there is also that earlier scene of the puppet theater, right? Where Audrey's watching it, and it's kind of similar to what's happening in her life.
Yeah, even with the inspector kind of lurking in the background. Yeah, that was a good scene that kind of summed everything up in a Punch and Judy show.
I also think it's kind of hilarious, and I mean, our like police procedures have evolved over time, so I don't know, this could be accurate, but all this evidence of this dude being like a shady guy and he's got multiple passports, and then the inspector's just like, oh, you can take this on with you, like, we don't need it. He's like, just sign this and it's all yours.
Right, yeah. No, we have no idea where any of this, where the money is. We're basically telling you you're going to jail and are putting you at risk for death. But here, take it all home. You don't really have storage space for this.
Yeah, like people keep dying and nobody's in like custody, protective custody. But maybe that just wasn't a thing back then. Like, I have no idea.
It was also just money too. It's not like something irreplaceable by the government got stolen. That was kind of the other weird plot point for me, where it was like, I can understand if they had like state secrets or something like that. And, not that the US government will let you off the hook for $250,000, which is probably, several $1 million back when this film was shot. But it's just like, a lot of people are dying over just a sum of money that probably is not that much money, all things told, for, the US government at that time. We lost several billion just like off pallets in the war in Afghanistan, and like no one really batted an eye about that. I don't think there was a modern equivalent of this movie, basically. It's just $250,000. What does the government care? Throw her in jail or let her go, and by next year, in a couple of months, the government will have made that money up pretty easily.
Well, I mean, I guess the only person they send is Cary Grant, so
true.
that inspector's trying to like solve the murders. Like, he doesn't really care about the money. Like,
and he solves that, within a couple of days' time. So that's actually a good use of money. Never mind, I take it back.
I recently have gone down this true crime rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Like, just listening to podcasts and watching documentaries, and I'm constantly surprised at like how police and FBI procedures just didn't even exist for certain scenarios, or it wasn't until the 70s that they found out like children are most likely to be abused by people they know. Like, they thought it was just like these stranger danger scenarios, right. And they didn't really have any like ways to check for like psychological damage to children until like the 90s. Like, it's just incredible. Like,
yeah, how recent all of this stuff is that we totally take for granted.
Yeah.
Yeah, like watching the Ted Bundy files. I had a lot of that. You could just kill anyone back in the day. Like, Ted Bundy just like would go murder someone and then be like, well, it's still early. I guess I'm going to do this again. There's no chance of them catching me now anyway.
Right. So I listened to a podcast on that one. Shout out to the True Crimes Obsessed podcast. But they were saying that because there was no like central intelligence system, or like the internet wasn't really used by the police, that you could commit murders in one state and then do the same thing in another state, and the two states would have no way of knowing. Yeah. Right. Or like be able to connect those two things, that it was the same perpetrator. And then also the other thing that just shocked me that I actually had to Google was the speech that the judge gives, where he's like, oh, I'm so sorry I have to put you away for killing all these dumb women. Like, I really love you, man. And I'm like, what is happening? Like, he's like, oh, it's such a shame that I have to put you away in jail. And like, you're such a waste of a human being. Like,
oh man.
Was that part of the documentary, or maybe I'm thinking of a different one?
No, I think you're right.
I Googled that statement afterwards because I was like, this cannot be real. Like, and then I checked it on Wikipedia, and I was like, this judge is known for his like sympathetic comments on the Ted Bundy trial. Like, oh snap, that's what you're known for? Like,
yeah, those comments. We should have done a whole thing on the Ted Bundy tapes. But yeah, like gosh, all of that was so bizarre, because it's just like, I mean, by the end of this documentary, like, he's not even that impressive of a person. Like, no one around him really even thought he was that impressive. They got an idea of like intelligence, but just like a weird self-seeking kind of, it's kind of a facade is how everyone got it. And meanwhile this judge is like falling in love with them as the details of some of his grisly murders like being revealed here. Just insane. What was the upstanding gentleman they thought he was? He wasn't really good at doing any of his other jobs anyway. He bought a suit and like had a failed career trying to get into politics, or like, glad handing with people in politics. And even they were like, he's just strange, man.
He was white. Like, you couldn't have had a different guy with a different skin color. He would not have gotten that same treatment.
Yeah, no shit. We would not have needed a 40th of the evidence required for that.
Yeah.
Would have just vigilante justice him on the street.
Yeah, that's true, sadly. But I don't have anything else more about Charade. Kind of went through all my notes.
Yeah, I don't think that I had anything else that was super critical either.
Oh, the only other thing that Jason and I already talked about, but I just wanted to let the listeners know, is that this movie is not copyright protected, which blows my mind. The song is copyright protected, but because they failed to put a label on it, at the time of its release, there's no way to go back and reclaim it. So you can watch this for free on YouTube. You can watch, like, the DVD I had was pretty... I didn't realize how crappy it was, because everybody can put out, like, a DVD of this movie and sell it anyway. So
Yeah, no, that was wild. I was really surprised to be able to see this on YouTube. Gosh, the other thing, I'm sorry that I did not write down, but I tried to. Did you know there's a remake of this?
there is.
Yes, there is. In 2002, there was a movie called The Truth About Charlie.
Who's in it? Who's in it?
Mark Wahlberg
No,
plays.
no, stop.
Yes, Mark Wahlberg plays Cary Grant's character.
No, he does not. No, what is?
Yes, I'm afraid he does. And then Regina, which is Audrey Hepburn's character, is played by Thandie Newton.
I don't know who that is, but Mark Wahlberg to me he's such a non-entity. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like there's nothing there.
No, and the funny thing is like the IMDb copy says, Regina meets the charming Joshua, played by Mark Wahlberg.
Oh, God.
And I'm like, no, there's nothing. Like, just absolutely insulting. My friend and I watched half of the movie last night, and
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for your sacrifice.
awful, totally awful. Like the direct.
It would have been funny. It would have been funny if you'd said like, and it was so good, even better than the original.
Well, it starts out already on the wrong foot with me because the title is like a pun. So the truth about Charlie, basically, it's like CHARLIE.
No.
And I only bring that up because that's also featured on the poster, where like truth is in white, and then the word, the ending of Charlie's name is in white on the poster, and everything else is in gray. So it looks like it says truth and lie. Anyway, it's just awful. Like right from the get-go, hated the poster. Mark Wahlberg sucks. He's just such a meat-headed actor. Does Cary Grant absolutely no justice. The film got canned. I think it only made like $7 million. It has like a 34% on Rotten Tomatoes. But oddly enough, Roger Ebert gave it 3 out of 4 stars, which just weird, man. Tim Robbins plays Walter Matthau's character, though.
Huh. Okay, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah. And then, gosh, Jung Hoon Park was one of the villains. Like, so they cast, they had a more interesting group of like villains, but they've removed all humor completely from the film. So instead of being kind of like witty and kind of, like capers and stuff like that, it's like much more serious, but it still revolves around stamps. Like it's still this bizarre murder thing, but like high stakes and kind of paranoid. I can't really even explain the weirdness.
But you had a really good like script doctoring idea earlier. They could have just made it about comic books. Everybody likes comic books these days, and there could have been like a kid reading a comic book, and then he's like, he doesn't realize that. I'm just throwing this out there.
Yeah, no, and like they kept the stamps. They didn't try to like modernize that portion of it at all. I couldn't finish the film. I was tired, and it was really bad. But I mean, just real mess ups the entire time around. Oh, instead of going to Walter Matthau's office, they go on a Ferris wheel. Like he meets Regina in like a public space, and they step into a Ferris wheel, and he hands her like a card with the CIA logo on it or something like that. But really just terrible. I can't imagine this film without humor, or like watching this film and trying to remake it and deciding that that's what needs to go. Yeah, I don't know. And I guess the original screenwriter didn't want his name anywhere near it. Can't recommend it.
Oh, that's incredible. All right. I think that's it. Unless you got anything else?
Nope. No, that's pretty much it. Happy 4th of July, which is when we're recording this.
Yeah, yeah. That's not going to be relevant when it comes out, but I hope everybody survived. As my friend in Germany always says, how do you have guns but you're not allowed to have fireworks? I don't understand.
Rude to bring it up, quite frankly. Wow. Good point.
But yeah, Jason, thanks for being on. Folks, thanks for listening, and we'll see you all soon.
Yeah, thanks a bunch.